Hey, music makers. The mission of this show is to give more grace, share more love, and make more music. And that's why I feel like the least we can do in the near future is any donations that come into the show are going to go directly to some organizations that support racial justice, racial reconciliation, and support Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. So please be praying for your brothers and sisters. Reach out, show love, give grace, and that's what this community is all about. So thank you all. Enjoy the show and consider others. Hey, welcome back to Make More Music, the podcast that connects you to music and one another. My name's Chris. I'm a board certified music therapist, and today we are continuing in season 3 with Brian Porter of Porter Pickups. Brian is the owner and operator manager with a small crew of pickup winders. They build the magnets and the pickups that make electric guitars and different instruments sing. So, great guy, really good chat, that kind of talking about, I think, a story that a lot of people know, and that's, I have to do something with music, but I don't know what it's going to look like. So he walks through a few different career paths, talks about failures, and ultimately talks about, wow, I found this thing that I'm good at, that people are responding to, that I enjoy, and just kind of how things all came together in that route and making those risks and taking those risks to go full time, to go all in. So great guy, great business, great sounding pickups. He's got a new entry level affordable line called the Gatekeeper, which is a play on Porter, his last name. They sound great. There's a link to those in the show note as well. Other than that, let's share about our sponsors and get into the episode. Season 3 of Make More Music is brought to you by 3 great sponsors, and I wanted to tell you about them real quick. So I built a guitar, and it is awesome. I have a companion blog post in the show notes that tells you about building a parts caster from concept to creation, and it tells you about the 3 great sponsors I got to work with. First is Parts Caster Concierge. Gary offers a truly concierge experience, from build constructions and consultations to unfinished bodies and wooden pedal enclosures, all the way to custom requests and fully custom builds. He offers traditional styles as well as unique, one-of-a-kind DIY experiences with guitars that wouldn't traditionally have a bolt-on neck with a parts caster style build. Second is Porter Pickups. Brian and his team have been winding pickups focused on finding you the right sound and winding with a purpose. Their 5-person shop offers consultation through their online pickup chooser form to help you get closer to the sounds you're looking for. They sound killer. They just launched an entry-level affordable line called the Gatekeeper, so if you're looking for something to try for the first time, look them up. Our last sponsor is Gun Street Wiring Shop, where they create wiring harnesses for your guitar needs with simple, elegant instructions to help even the first-time solderer like myself get the sound they're looking for. He's not into promoting parts myths, mojo, and magic. He sells circuits, and their customer service is top-notch. From basic upgrades to wild enhancements, Gun Street has got what you need. As I said, all the links are in the show notes, and you'll hear me blab about it more. But if you want more, look there. All right, back to the show. All right, Brian, thanks for being here on Make More Music. How's your morning going today?
Yeah, it's going good. It's a little cold this morning. We kind of had the change of season, if you will, over the last few weeks. So it's been down in the 30s and the 20s in the mornings. So it's kind of a little harder to get out the door sometimes. Forget the scraping the car window routine, man, and all
that's
that
never
stuff.
Fun. The first window scrape. Yeah.
Yeah, the car is just as grumpy as you are, waiting to warm up and get going so you can go to work.
Yeah, it still can't decide if it's going to be cold or hot here. We're having that back and forth, 80 degrees, 30 degrees thing.
Nice.
So Kentucky weather, especially this Ohio Valley region, it's like it's cold one day, it's tornado the next day, and it's 90 the next day. That's very, very normal around here.
Nice.
Cool. So before we get into everything about your backstory and Porter Pickups, are you ready to do a few rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I want you to open up your media player, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you like to listen to. And what was the last track you listened to?
Oh, man. You could have put me on the spot here.
I know. Well, we've had dads with Baby Shark, and we've had wild things in the past. So
Oh
no
man.
shame.
So lately it's been either Switchfoot or Lecrae. So
Okay.
those are two lately listens, I guess you could say.
I just read this really fascinating book called "The Color of Compromise," and Lecrae does the foreword in that. I
Okay.
was like,
Okay.
oh, I saw Lecrae perform. I think I went to One Passion in 2013, and I saw him perform there, and I was like, man, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's a talented dude, that's for sure. That's for sure.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a random playlist always. Sometimes when I'm working on a guitar, just working on some pickup stuff, I'll have headphones on, but then oftentimes we have 4 or 5 guys here that they get charge of the ship in terms of music. So it's everything from, country western, like old twangy stuff to heavy stuff to emo stuff. I never know what I'm gonna hear when I walk in the shop, which I kind of enjoy.
That's good. That's good. Next, you can take this as plainly or as deeply and philosophically as you want to take it. But if
Okay.
you were an instrument, what would you be and why?
Uh, I don't know how I couldn't say electric guitar, just because that's kind of been my life for 15, 20 years of just all electric guitar. So I couldn't see myself being any other instrument for sure.
What type of electric would you be? Since, we're all electric guitar nerds here. So,
What type? Like you're talking about like
yeah,
solid.
would you be like a
Oh,
telly or
oh.
yeah. You can go as specific as you want or as general as you want.
I would say just to bring it back to the beginning, probably Strat, because that's sort of the first instrument first electric that I got. Well, it was a PV Predator, but kind of Strat copy basically.
Hmm.
And that was just kind of gravitated towards that because I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan and I was like, that is guitar sound. That's what it should be. And that's
Exactly.
what got me into guitar.
Exactly. Well, I was saying this, back in, I don't know, July, but we didn't even think we would still be in the COVID stuff then. And now we're still in it. So what's
Oh, yeah.
something that's been inspiring you recently in the midst of continued lockdowns and continued pandemic headaches and all that stuff?
Yeah, I am really enjoying these conversations I'm having with our customers, people who are picking up guitar, or not for the first time, but they're kind of picking it back up, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
After a long break, they kind of maybe have turned off the news a little bit more, and they're picking up their instrument and saying, "I just want to learn. I want to spend this time to get back into it, to modify my instrument, to just learn it more." And that's been honestly, like, I think that's the silver lining of this whole thing in the music industry, is that they're really diving into guitar again, and that's inspiring for me. Obviously it can be good for our business, but at the same time I'm enjoying that because it also pushes me to be like, yeah, I'm going to take my guitar home and actually spend some time playing it and getting to know, what this one we just finished up or something. What is that? How does it work out? What kind of wiring do we want to do? And sort of get back to the tinkering and the guitar nerd phase that
Yeah.
kind
The
of
fun
got.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of like the stuff that kind of got this whole mess started here with Porter. It just the love of the instrument, and so I'm seeing that more with more people, and making fun of a friend of mine who he he took a break from guitar for a long time, and he's a pilot, and he's like a private pilot that flies insurance adjusters around, and that's really difficult right now to do stuff like
Mm.
that. And so he's basically been grounded for a couple months, and he decided to get back into guitar, and now he's got, like, literally in the last like 4 months he's bought 4 guitars, and it's like the bug is back. And I just kind of like I kind of make fun of him because I'm like, I've sort of had that bug for consistently for a lot of years, and now I just like laugh at him because it's back, and I don't think it's gonna go away now.
Just watching him fall down the rabbit
Yeah,
hole. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry,
Except he's
man.
got more money than when he was a kid, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So he has, a little bit of cash to tinker with, obviously, but it's been it's been fun because we built him a couple guitars, and that's been awesome for him to kind of go the full experience of getting a full custom guitar as well. And so that's been super cool for me.
Yeah, I've been doing kind of the same thing. One of my buddies has been, writing, and I've been helping him record music for the first time ever. And we're slowly getting there. We're getting close to releasing some stuff, but it's really fun to see someone else that I get to go, oh, cool, check out what I did with the EQ here, and like get to show him like the nerdy stuff about, parallel compression and things like that. So that's cool, man. That's cool. Well, this could be in your line of work, or this could be something that you've just learned that you think people need to know. But what's a pro tip or a life hack that you use that other people need to know about?
Oh man. I think just and maybe it's the fact that the weather has changed and I can't get out and do this as much, but I think that getting outside, and for me it's riding my bike, it's mountain biking, doing something that, I love guitar, I love doing this business, but it's important to step away from that for a while because I think it keeps you refreshed and it keeps you recharged. And um, so like getting outside and kind of turning off social media. I've been off Facebook for 4 months and it's been amazing.
You're right in time for the election. That's why.
I was like, should I come back before the election? No, probably not. And so
not a chance.
But just getting outside and literally, here I can get to places where my phone doesn't work. So that's even better. But at the same time, just getting out and doing something, whether it's exercise or hiking or anything like that, just get outside and change the pace a little bit. Cause it's pretty easy to sit at home and scroll and kind of just make your brain mush. And I think it's important to get out and reset. And I use it as like an efficiency thing because I have a couple buddies that I ride with. And so it's like a hangout time, exercise time, and getaway time all in once, all at one time. Cause I'm a busy guy. And so I have to,
got to take what you can get sometimes.
I have to jam all of my extra things into one activity just because life is crazy.
I know exactly how that goes. And I'm glad, my wife and I went rogue several years ago on all social media. And then, I was launching the show and I thought, oh, I guess I need to get an Instagram account. And so I've been doing that. And we just took another break probably around the same time as you. And it's just like, it's funny that first couple of weeks you like feel like you should be doing something and you feel fidgety. But then after that like toxic period washes over, it's like, wow, this is really nice. And I couldn't care less what anyone else is doing right now or what coffee they're drinking or, anything like that.
I wish it was just coffee and food talk like it used to be.
That would be much better. Yeah. Unfortunately not. Yes. Speaking of food talk, next one, what's your go-to junk food?
Junk food, man. Trying to think of specific junk food. I mean, I kind of like the Reese's, like that kind of stuff. Like, can't really beat that. Trying to think of a specific.
Somebody was talking to me about that. Did you know that the difference between the cups and like the eggs in the trees is that the eggs in the trees actually have gluten in them and the regular Reese cups are gluten-free?
Really?
Yeah. Apparently they taste different. I just liked them both. I didn't know.
I got to say though, that like, the Reese's cups have been getting smaller every year. I feel
what
like.
Is that about?
And then
then they put out the thin ones. Like who wants a thin Reese cup or a thin Oreo?
Well,
like,
then they
just don't eat them.
They upsell the big sizes like what it used to be. They don't say that, but it's like, oh, this is the mega size or whatever. And it's like, no, that's what they used to be. And
no,
it's like
this was regular.
Yeah. I'm like, if they take out like one teaspoon of peanut butter, they probably save millions of dollars or something, I'm sure, on the scale that they're at. But it's a problem. It's a function of the way our society is going. The Reese's are getting smaller and it's not good.
Yeah, even Reese's is gaslighting us in 2020. What can we do?
Right, like, we're in trouble.
Yeah, everyone's aware of how messed up the world is this year, for sure. Lastly, this can be anybody, a personal friend to another company you admire. anywhere in between. But what's a person, a project, or an organization that you think deserves a shout out?
So I'm gonna shout out Tom Anderson Guitars. I've
Sweet.
always loved their instruments. I used to have 3 at one time, but they've been sold for various reasons in slow seasons or the birth of children. So um, they will come back at some point. But I know some people there. I just respect the way that they run their business, the quality of their instruments, and kind of the fact that they've grown every year, but they don't do a ton of marketing because their product is just good. And
Mhm.
they're not really flashy, and they're not really kind of out there in your face, which works for some people, but um, I kind of relate to that a little bit more just because I'd rather continue to make good stuff than
Yeah.
try to. I'm not saying some people trick guitarists into buying their stuff, but they're really good salesmen, let's say, and
Yeah.
and I don't think that always is my personality. So sometimes I just prefer to make good stuff and let the people that want to keep buying come back. And if I
Let it
can't,
grow naturally.
yeah, and
Yeah.
if I can't impress them, then I'm maybe they would have jumped ship anyways at some point. It's
Yeah.
quite possible.
Yeah. There are lots of people who are just going to be unhappy regardless
Oh yeah.
of what it is and how good a thing is. And
Well, and we're in
they're
the
projecting their anger
yeah we're in the
at you know,
Amazon generation right now. So it's us being like a custom shop, custom winding shop and a small crew. It's people will order on a Monday and it'll be Tuesday afternoon, and they'll be like, "What's going on?" and "Where's my order?" And we had a guy ask if he ordered on Friday evening at 5 o'clock, so we were already gone for the day. And Monday morning at 8 a.m., he's like, "Is your shop on fire? What's going on? Where's my order?" He literally asked us
no,
if the
we
shop
just
was on
all have
fire.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yikes.
been strange. I think people are squeezed this year, obviously. We had a guy ask us hey, if COVID's affecting you, I want to return on my order. Like literally, if you guys, if you guys are so slow that because of COVID supply issues, I want my money back. I'm like,
Like
whoa,
every single company I've heard of.
yeah, exactly. So,
Oh man.
so, and it's like you got to give those guys maybe a pass because you don't know what's going on with them specifically. But yeah, sometimes you get some of those angry things hurled at you, and you're like, okay, sorry you're having such a bad day. Like you get to modify your guitar, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. How about I recommend a therapist for
Yeah,
you?
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Uh, yeah. So, okay, before we get into everything about your, day to day and the company and all that, I want you to take me back to when you're a young guy with the Strat and you are, listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan. So, or even before that, what were some of your first musical memories?
Yeah, so I didn't really growing up, I didn't listen to a lot of music like at all. It is
Hmm.
never something like that was played a bunch at home. We didn't have like a family stereo or uh, anything like that. And so it was really like um, it wasn't that music didn't get listened to at all, but it was very, very minimal. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
kind of
Just
strange.
like consequential,
Yeah, it
when it
just
happened.
wasn't
Yeah.
like, hey, let's go home and put on some music. And a lot of people grew up that way where they listened to all these different things. So I think that my parents are both pretty non-musical in terms of like just consuming music. They obviously had
Hmm.
stuff they listened to, but it just never. So there's never anything that kind of like was passed down to me, like, oh, my dad listened to this or whatever. Um,
So
so
when did you get the bug then? Yeah.
so I always enjoyed music. I always like to listen and hear stuff. And I had a friend like who was into guitar before me, and he said, "Hey, you got to check out Jimi Hendrix." And I think I had just started kind of getting interested in guitar at that point. Like I don't think I had one, and I was like wanting to get one just because I thought it'd be cool. Because at that time, I think it was like the mid '90s, and so it was um, like in Nirvana and
All
Green
that stuff
Green
was
Day
going
and
on.
Bush.
Yeah, yeah,
All those
yeah.
bands were kind of the popular mainstream stuff at that point.
And
So
you were roughly how old when you got a guitar?
I think I was 15 or 16, probably.
Sweet.
Um,
Good age. Good
yeah,
age. Yeah.
yeah. So I remember it was a long time convincing my mom to say, "Hey, can you help me get this thing?" It was like the PV Bandit amp and the Predator
Starter
guitar.
pack.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
basically like
Yeah.
their Strat Pack copy kind of deal when everyone was doing those like all in one deals. And
So,
so my friend showed me Jimi Hendrix, and I hated it at first. I was like, "This is I," because Jimmy's a little bit. He's pretty sloppy, and it's pretty like if you just heard him for the first time ever, you'd be like, "What is this?" And then it kind of started growing on me a little bit. And then he's like, "Well, let me show you Steve Ray Vaughan, who's kind of got some Jimmy influence, obviously." And so I heard Jimmy's version of Little Wing, and then I heard Stevie's version of Little Wing, and I was like, "Whoa, Stevie's version is so much better for me." Like
awesome.
I just like that was my first point of like, this is what guitar tone is. This is what guitar should sound like.
It's a great place to start.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
Exactly. So that was sort of and then coming out of like the 4-chord grunge, rock or whatever was being played at that point. It's like, well, I can, almost
You
learn
do a
all.
lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it's like I know a couple bar chords. I could pretty much cover a lot of these sounds right now, and so then that kind of like shifted me into, wow, I really like the blues. Like that just resonates with me, and so I sort of went through this weird period of like kind of going from Stevie Ray to any of the offshoots from Stevie Ray, whether it was like Johnny Lang or Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And then
that's good 90s stuff.
Yeah, kind of just going both ways, so backwards and forwards, kind of from Stevie Ray, and that sort of like, so I was so far behind in music knowledge and like, oh, do you know this band and this band? And so like I sort of developed a weird journey through music. I wasn't like, oh, grew up in the 80s, but I wasn't like, oh, I love all the 80s bands. That just kind of just how it worked for me. So it was a little bit different.
That's awesome. So kind of right away you were, going down kind of a different path, even starting, like you said, like, well, I wasn't listening to music at home. So just kind of stumbled into things. And man, those Johnny Lang albums, my mom she like loved all the 90s music so much. And I just remember Lie to Me. We jammed that at the house a lot growing up. And I haven't thought of that in a long time. So you just gave me like a wild blast.
Oh yeah. Go put it on. There's some good stuff on there for sure.
That's good. That's good. So, in high school and stuff like that, are you joining bands or what does that look like?
Yeah. So I jammed with some friends. We would get together and we had a bass player. Well, there's a friend of mine who played guitar starting off, and it was one of those like, okay, we have everything else, but one of us has to decide to play bass. And so there was a bit of an argument over who should be the one to play bass. And so both of us were presenting our cases to why the other one should play bass. And I don't even remember how it got resolved, but my buddy ended up playing bass, and he became a fantastic bass player and, played in a bunch of bands and all sorts of stuff. And so it's kind of cool, but it was that point where I'm like, man, I almost became a bass player. That was really close. That was, it could have been changed the whole course of my life,
For sure. For sure.
But yeah, so then we would just jam in the summers and the evenings, weekends. We found a bunch of other people that were kind of blues heads. So we would play like Voodoo Child and play a bunch of other stuff, just jamming early on and learning and kind of playing covers and that kind of stuff. So that was sort of the practical application, I guess, of playing. I never really had a specific band until later, but it was more of just that first few years of just having people to play with was really cool.
Yeah, those garage bands that never make it out, like out of the house or out of the garage, that was some of the most fun of just like hanging out with your friends. For us, it was Misfit covers. We would play the Misfits and play in an hour. We'd play 40 songs because they're all 2 minutes long. But so you mentioned later on having other bands. I'm wondering a little bit about your path after high school? Was music something that you were for sure moving towards, or was that kind of ambiguous? What was your path between this high schooler that's in all these bands to getting towards starting Porter Pickups?
Yeah, so it was a pretty interesting journey because I still wanted to, music was kind of a big part of my life, and so I wanted to do music. And in high school, they kind of force you to choose your career path, which
Yeah,
I
I
always,
remember those like career
yeah, I always hated that
test
stuff.
things.
And it's like,
Yeah.
tell us what you want to be today for the rest of your life, and then fill out this thing of your, how you're going to go get that or whatever. And so my friends would be filling it out. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a pilot, and I want to be a nurse or whatever it was. And I was like, I don't know what I want to be. And you had to turn it in. And so the last option on the form was the Forest Service Ranger. And I was like, well, that sounds that sounds good for now. So
There you go.
I checked that because I had to turn something in. But yeah, so after high school, I took a guitar building apprenticeship with a guy named John Bolin here in Boise, and he builds the really crazy ZZ Top guitars,
Whoa.
the fuzzy ones, and he built some stuff for Steve Miller and Jimmy Page and a bunch
Is
of
everything pretty out there, or is it a mix?
um
It's not all fuzzy guitars, or
no,
is
I
it
mean
all
it's
kind
a
of
lot of
wild?
really high end custom, really really cool stuff that he does. But then he builds some more standard options, but most of it is pretty crazy spec stuff. Like I when I was there,
Working like directly with these people and
yeah,
kind of
yep, yeah,
determining what they want and stuff like that.
definitely, yeah. So I got exposed to a lot of really neat guitars during that time. There was stuff going um, to presidents and all sorts of stuff at that time. So
Whoa.
it was cool. There was a lot of really really wild stuff coming through the shop. And some of the stuff that I was like, hey, you can't talk about this because it's a secret project for this guy, that kind of stuff. And
That's wild.
so we built a guitar together. He taught me a bunch of stuff about guitar making because that was like I didn't even end up going to college right away. I was like, I'm not sure what I want to do yet. So I did
Mhm.
that for a year after high school, and then I decided to go to college. I went to a community college, and I did classical guitar and like a traveling like jazz band. So we were like the rhythm section for a bunch
Hmm.
of singers kind of deal, and that was like too far too far left or right from what I really
Into
wanted
like
to
the
do.
business world
Well,
thing. Yeah.
it was just like I don't really want to play jazz, like this kind of jazz, and I don't really want to do classical guitars. And so it
Hmm.
was a little bit of well, I'm doing music, but it was like definitely not the music I wanted to do. And so,
Yeah.
so even further than that, I went to a music school in Memphis called Visible School,
Hmm.
and it was a Christian music school, which was like they built bands and they sent bands out on tour, but they provided you with a lot of music training. So it was all the music school stuff, but it was definitely geared towards
That's
rock
very
rock
interesting.
music and other placements for musicians around the country. So it was kind of
Wow.
an equipping school, if you will. And so I met my wife there, and she did like music business, so she worked for some record labels and stuff like that. And um, so we were definitely both like loving music. And so that was the point where I went there thinking, well, I'll jump into some kind of band scene and maybe just
Hmm.
make that my career. I could be a studio guy, or I could be jump on a tour, or I could
Yeah.
this was the
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this was all
Sky's
the
the limit.
yeah, exactly. So trying to give myself a good opportunity because I still didn't want to do anything else other than music. But I think that was a turning point for me in terms of where I wanted to go. So I had this little bit of training with guitar stuff, and I loved that. And I didn't really I found I really hate traveling. So
Mm.
um, it's more of a little bit of a homebody, I guess you could say, but also just the whole rigors of loading in a bunch of people in the van and
Yeah.
making $25 and going to Taco Bell, and then your money's gone and you have to go to the next venue, and seeing all these bands that were doing that, and you're like, this doesn't seem like maybe as glamorous as you thought it would, you know.
Yeah.
um,
Taco Bell 7 times this week is
yeah,
not.
exactly. But you can only have one taco because we need gas to get 100 miles down the road to the next gig or whatever. So it started to like lose its luster. And I think the more that I learned about the ins and outs of the music industry, the more I was like, yeah, I don't know. Cause, my wife was learning about contracts and how, the music contracts for a while and still can be very not artist friendly. There's a lot of language in there that funnels money in a bunch of different ways and that kind of stuff. And not that I had like a million opportunities waiting for me. It's just that I started looking at it from a lot of different, you see the guy on stage and of course everyone wants to do that, but the amount of stuff that it took to even get there for even a mid-level, low-level band is like insane. It's a lot. And so I think that was really like a giant door closing for me. I was like, man, I just don't think that I really want to do this. And so it was kind of a little bit depressing in a way because I had worked so long to try to do that. But then the more I learned about it, I'm like, this is not me. And so that was sort of the beginning of, well, I do still, it was like running out of music related things, right?
Yeah, you're like, okay.
Checking this off. Nope, can't do this, can't do this. And like, it literally was. It was kind of like a refinement sort of thing where it's like, all right, well, I still like messing with guitars. And so at that point, I kind of started again trying to build some guitars. And we moved back to the Boise area in 2007. And at that point, it was like, well, I need to make some pickups for the guitars. And then the pickups sort of, as I was able to make a few coils, kind of really dive into them, my friends started playing them and they're like, man, these are really good. And I was like, of course was like, are you just saying that because, you're my buddy? Like, no, these are really good. And so I'm like, well, let me try to maybe shift a little bit more focus to this because, I thought doing it all myself, making guitars and all that stuff, it would be cheaper. But obviously it wasn't, wasn't cheaper with it. I kept screwing up everything. So the pickups started becoming its own beast, if you will. And as I would sell a couple to a few people, I'm like, wow, I just made this and sold it. And, I maybe I made $100 off of it, but that's like, that's in the top, I don't know, top 20 of what I've ever made, like playing a show.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it became I'm like, wow, there's
perspective.
Yeah, maybe there's something to this. And so I, was trying to convince my wife, like, hey, I need to buy this, some coil winding machine that I can do some hand winding on. And she's like, well, it's really, kind of expensive, and kind of went back and forth and eventually got it and started winding some more. And I look back and I could say, well, it took off really quickly, but it didn't necessarily. We just had a goal of, can I pay for groceries, or can I pay for a phone bill, or whatever it might be, and just kind of like slowly picking some of those off. And then probably about 9 years ago or so, it was up to about halftime. And then I was like, we got to either do this or not, because we still, my wife was working. We had a couple kids at that point, and we're like, we got to decide what we're going to do. And we have to figure out if it's, is this something that we want to keep pursuing? Because halftime is not enough.
Yeah,
it's like,
for sure,
it's better than nothing. But it's this weird, like, we didn't jump from 0 to full time. It was like half to full is still a huge plunge. But it was a point where we had, a couple kids at home, and it was like my wife wanted to stay home. And we were like, well, if we go for this, the worst case scenario is that we have to get some odds and ends jobs to kind of like make it all work together. So we did it, and we went for it, and never looked back ever since.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a couple cool things I want to pull out of that.
Yeah.
For one, I always love to ask, like, on this side of it, it seems like, yep, and we made that call, but I'm wondering, what were some of the emotions that were going on through that? And the other thing was, said, I was going to make these guitars, thought I was going to save money, but even as someone who had training, you still like, I was like, dang, I kept messing things up. So, for the person who's at home or maybe during quarantine that has, started tinkering more with things like that or wanting to get into building or all those different kind of things, what resources would you point them to? So those are two very different things, but what were some of those mistakes that you were making that, with, pointing their eyes in the right direction, they might find the light a little bit faster than you did?
Yeah. I think, with the guitar side of things, I'm a very visual, practical learner. And
Mm-hmm.
if I read a manual on how to do something, I still have to go through and actually, if there's 10 steps, I have to mess up 6 of the 10 steps to actually learn
Man,
it.
I feel you.
I'm just not a book learner. So if you show me how to do it a couple times, I usually can do it. Or if I make the mistake myself, then I'm less likely to make it again, kind of deal.
For
So
sure.
for me, that required, that was the toughest part, is that it required a lot of mistakes. It required a lot of failure, a lot of like disappointment with people who wanted guitars and it wasn't quite all the way there for them and that kind of thing. But that's, I look back at how much money I spent trying to get a shop set up in the early days and all that. And it's insane, but I kept going because I want to keep doing it. And that was just, for me, that was just how it had to go. And I wish, I definitely, like, with all those mistakes under my belt, I definitely approach things differently now. So I can kind of get to the end goal a little bit faster because of, I've got a mountain of screw ups to stand on and allow me to be like, yeah, I can't do this, this, and this. And even as, as we work with designers for like CNC programs and even guitar designs, you can't do this. Well, why not? Because the bridge won't be in the right spot. And if you put the bridge in the right spot, your scale length's going to be screwed up. And so it's like, for me, I look at people that are really talented and creative, and they can kind of just get things right a lot quicker. And I'm like, man, I wish I was that way, but I'm not. I've always had to kind of grind it out. Same with music too. It's like, I've always had to just keep working. And that's been frustrating at times, because you're like, I want to have momentum. I want to get all this stuff done. But I realize I've got to kind of lay a foundation before that happens. So.
Yeah, I identify with that a lot. Just that whole like, it doesn't come quickly. And I think even those people, I do have one of those friends though, that it's like, why are you good at everything you try?
Yeah. Yep.
Why are you so good? How do you learn a language just like that? How do you become, I used to make fun of him. He just like picked up intramural every sport when we were in college and would just like win the championship of that sport. I was like, what? Who are you? How do you do that?
Yeah.
But before we kind of head on to that next spot, so you talked about that transition from half to full. Was that kind of like, oh, okay, let's just go for it, or was there a lot of anxiety going on with that? What would you say you were kind of feeling around that time?
Yeah, I think there was tons of anxiety because at that point we had already built a whole guitar shop, and then had some people not happy with what we were making guitar wise, and I literally kind of quit the guitar side at that point. So I sold everything, and I had a person that was a friend of mine, and they threatened to sue me because the guitar wasn't done in time. And it was like crazy stuff. And I'm like, I can't afford to do this. Like, this is my passion and it's kicking my butt constantly. And I didn't like that. It's like, that was the first time in my life that guitar wasn't fun. And so it was really a point where I was like, man, I'm considering doing something else with my career path, because there was that like, okay, well, the pickups are doing this, but then this other part of it just like completely flopped in a way. And so I was like just burnt out. I was kind of done with dealing with it, and not being able to meet people's expectations, and struggling to keep food on the table and all these other things. And it was like, man, I just can't do this anymore. This is not what I want to do. But at the same time, all this stuff was going with the pickups. And so that was sort of a shift for us, is like, we need to pursue the stuff that's actually
Let's pay
fairly,
attention to this. Yeah.
repeatable. We can earn some money off of this. But yeah, like you're saying, the question about like how was it for us, like making that decision? I think it was in a time of very, very, very touchy, like it was touchy times for us because we knew this is something that we want to do, and it's showing itself to not be, it wasn't like I sold one set of pickups every 3 months. It was more than that. So it was a point where we're like, okay, we got to do this, and we definitely went for it and had a little bit, like I said, supplemental kind of income to kind of give us a little barrier. But once you have kids and you see those kids and you love
they're staring you in the face.
Yeah, you're like, I got to either do this or not. Like I'm providing for a couple people now, and if I don't do it and I don't do it well, it's not going to work. And it was kind of like, this is my last ditch effort to do something guitar related for my job. And so that was that was the motivation, I guess, at that point, just to bust my butt as much as I could to kind of fit it all together. And at that time there was Instagram was starting to really ramp up, and we got some really good connections, and the business started really, really growing. And we went from running out of our house, like we had an extra room in our house that we converted for like basically like nursery, and then it got converted into the pickup shop. Different points during the day, back and forth, roll in a crib and let the baby take a nap, and then
pop-up shop.
Yep, basically. Yeah. And then we hired our first guy, and he was working in our garage, and it was 5 degrees outside, and we had a little space heater in there for him. And like, here, you can make bobbins in the garage because it won't wake up the baby, kind of thing. And this was the beginning. And so soon after that, we're like, we got to get a shop. And so as we started, getting some more stuff going, we got a shop kind of around the corner from our house. I could literally walk to work. And
great.
That was like the big step of like, okay, we're separating, home and business. And that was good for a lot of things.
But it's close.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I could leave and go home and help with a crazy day with the kids or whatever. And
even just knowing that, on the weekend you could check on it. It was right there.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So that was kind of so some of those things fell into place in terms of just like providing opportunities to, to honestly just to focus a little bit better. I remember getting phone calls, and we were still running the business out of the house, and I had to try to outrun my kids. On the cell phone, they're chasing me around like, Daddy, I got a question about this, or Daddy, what's this? What's that? Like I'm literally taking laps, like speed walking.
Trying to sound professional.
Yeah.
You're on the phone.
Yeah. I'm like running around the house, trying to like, okay, if I go in here, they won't find me, and I can finish this phone call. And so I laugh now, but it was like really stressful when you're on the phone with a customer and you're like, they're trying to decide to buy something, and you're like, I can't lose the sale. But now it's like all cool and acceptable to be working from home.
2020. That's just like, yep, that's my kid pooping their pants in the background.
Exactly. Like, sorry, this is life. And they're like, okay, no big deal. It's like, it's not weird, but it was at that point. And
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, getting that new shop was a big shift, because then you had a whole new set of bills. You had the rent and the power and all the stuff over there. And so it was like, man, this is starting to move into new territory. And so that was cool for us though, like kind of making that transition. And then a couple of years ago, we got about 3,000 square feet now for our shop. And
wow.
It's a good place. So we've been slowly kind of chipping away, and now we got a really good shop that's got a bay for the pickups and the guitars, and showroom and an office. So it's a good setup.
That sounds great. That's probably not around the corner though, is it?
It's about 3 miles away, so not bad.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, that's great. So, in between now and then, you've picked up a handful of employees now, and I've listened to your podcast, and y'all are talking about the good thing about that space is that you've got space to physically distance, and y'all can still all keep working and all of that stuff going on as well. So, you also mentioned, you've alluded to the kind of, retribution, the renaissance of the guitars coming back into play. So around what time did you say we're giving this another go, and kind of what was different for you that makes that possible now?
Yeah. So it was always something that, I even held on to, like I sold everything, instrument, equipment wise and tools and all that stuff. But I kept some wood, and it was wood that I had bought and over the course of some of the wood I bought in Memphis, and I had this wood for like at least 12 years or so. And
There you go.
I was like, I'm going to build myself a guitar someday again. And it was like, I never want to make these like threats because I always have to follow through on them. And it drives me nuts because I'm like, dang it, I did say that I was going to make a guitar.
I told myself
again.
I would do that. I can't lie to myself.
Yeah, exactly. So I had met through some mutual friends, a gentleman that built acoustic guitars. And he also was very versed in CNC programming. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then we had another guy that worked for us that went to luthier school. And so I was starting to see this, like, okay, we kind of have a team, like we have the elements of a team that I could actually,
maybe we could do this.
I have some help and I don't have to do everything myself, which wouldn't have gone well. And so we had these concepts and we had these ideas, and I'm like, let's just chase them and let's see what happens. That's kind of the simple version of it. But we designed our first model and kind of developed the whole thing. And I had the benefit of saying, well, if we spend the time on the programming, the CNC is not going to mess up as long as, our jigs hold down the wood and all that stuff. So we knew that we would have good neck pocket fits, and we knew that the bridge would be in the right spot, and the tuner holes would be all perfectly aligned, and the things that, didn't happen on some of the previous ones. So we started with some new designs, and our first design we called the Croesus, which is basically like a play on the word, what the process like a chameleon goes through changing its colors. So the thought with that guitar was inspired by my first Strat that I had, which had the swimming pool route, and you could pop in any pickguard, any configuration. And so what we wanted to do is make a guitar that was sort of like coming back out of the pickup business, if that makes sense. So we could swap out different pickguards in this guitar and
let people do whatever they want.
Yeah, and we made a quick connect solderless system. So all you had to do is plug this new pickguard in and put it down and screw it down, and you're rocking on your next set of Strat pickups or Tele pickups or whatever it is.
Very cool.
So that was kind of our first guitar, and we launched it. I mean, it's everything with like guitars it was different for us because we're making these like, $200 to $250 products, and then going into like, okay, we have these like $1,500, $2,000 guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like a whole nother ballgame of like customer base and all that other stuff. And so that took a little bit of time. And, but that's kind of the journey that we jumped back in and really just had a team to start with. And that ensured that it actually would happen, instead of, I was more of a project leader in that sense of like, okay, we need to get this done and design this shape and finish this. And so it was actually like a better way for me to approach building guitars, is thinking of it as like, okay, well, I don't want to, sit there with a hand router and try to route out a humbucker cavity if I can get a machine to do that. So that was the journey there.
Well, so winding back, pardon that pun, winding back to getting into the pickups. Some of my listeners may not be aware that, on an electric guitar, the pickups make a difference. So tell me a little bit about, if you're talking, I'm assuming all your family at Thanksgiving knows these things now, but you're stopped by a stranger or something and somebody asks you build guitar pickups, and they're like, oh, that's a thing. What do you do? Yeah. What does that mean? Why does that matter? What do you tell those people who have no clue?
Yeah. It's funny because like when we say we do pickups, they're like, oh, pickup trucks, or, the first few years of our business, we got calls for like the spray on bed liners for, they're Ford.
Yeah.
And like, oh, do you guys sell like tail lights and stuff like that? My tail lights. And like, no, we don't. And they wouldn't take no for an answer. And We finally like we make it.
I
We make
promise
guitar
you I do
stuff.
not do.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of say because people don't really know, like non-musicians don't really know that that's a part of the guitar. They just somehow know that you plug in an electric guitar and it works. Um, so I basically say we make the microphones for the electric guitar, and that's like the most simple way to put it because we're capturing what the strings are doing, and then it gets amplified through the rest of your chain. And so we make those, and yeah, there's a lot of people like you. That's your job. And I was like, yeah, it's my it's my job. That's what I
It's
do.
pretty great. Yeah,
Yeah. So it takes them a while to wrap their heads around it because they don't have a context of like, oh, that's what you know. So usually I'll say like, when a guitarist is like where they're picking, there's either some metal or plastic pieces under there, and I try to keep it as simple as possible. But they're like, oh, okay. Many of them actually kind of know, like a lot of even non-musicians know what a Strat is or what a Les Paul is.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense after you kind of like bring their attention to that.
Definitely. So, but they're just like, that's all you make? Like, kind of like you don't make the whole thing. You just make that, it's sort of like, it's not like I'm making knobs or something like that, but it might as well be a knob to them,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so kind of the next extrapolation from there is like, okay, so you make that. Why would it matter to someone? Why does that make a difference? And why would someone consider, swapping out pickups or, why look to Porter when they have, a pickup fail or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think of it like, I have like this analogy that I use, and I've used it a couple times. And I think of them like pickups are like pizza. So if you go and eat like a pepperoni pizza, there's like only a couple ingredients, right? But you've had some amazing pizza and you've had some really bad pizza.
I like this analogy. This analogy holds a lot of water. I like this.
It's very relatable because people are like, yeah, I've had bad pizza, but I've had really good pizza. And so that comes down. What does that come down to? It comes down to most likely quality of materials and the way they're put together. Maybe it's the way they're cooked, or maybe it's the way that they're layered or whatever. But quality materials is important in that whole equation. So if you're going to use the best cheese or the best sauce, it's going to taste better rather than if you're making a microwave pizza or something like that. So that's the same with pickups. Is there's a lot of pickups are not hard to make in terms of, it's hard to wind coils, but in terms of what they are, it's a coil and magnets, essentially, like on a Strat pickup. It's very simple device, but all the parts of the recipe are what makes the sound better. What makes something like we make better than something that you're going to find like in a Squier or in a mass produced instrument. They're able to just make something that works. And that's all the thought that goes into it. And for us, it's winding pattern, it's types of magnets, it's the quality of the wire that we use. All those elements become a good sounding pickup, basically. And so that some of it is a lot of the trial and error over time. Like, okay, well, this wind works well for this, and this, like, I used some wire that was on. So I was curious. I had my Strat's a 98 USA Strat, I think that I have. And cool. I used some of the wire that was on those pickups. I found some and I was like, I'm going to try to wind something with that wire just to see. And it sounded terrible. And I was like, okay, interesting. So there was a correlation between the quality of the wire that was being used and then the end result of the sound. And everything else was the same in terms of the winding pattern, the number of turns, and everything. So as I furthered that, like kind of nerding out over that, I was like, well, we need to use these kinds of materials, and we need to not like shift from what those are, because that's how we're going to make a good sound. And that's how we're going to get customers come back is if we say it does this, then it should do that for the customer. And that's the thing I don't like about our industry is there's a lot of like myths and, voodoo, especially with pickups. You've seen it, right? You're like, oh, this is the most authentic recreation of the PAF, and they don't understand is the PAFs are all over the place in terms of magnets and reading
that it was made
readings.
at a time when
Exactly.
when things weren't controlled
Yep.
very well.
Yeah. So
or
so
something
that's
like
kind of the thing that we're just looking for consistency, and I think ultimately the guitarist is looking for that too. None of us like to waste money on music gear, and all of us have wasted a ton of money on stuff that we thought was going to do, what we were like, oh, this is going to change my guitar sound, and it didn't. And then you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Then you're disappointed. So that's kind of the way we always approach pickups and the way we design them. And that's been the thing. Like I mentioned back to the Tom Anderson thing, just kind of like, how can I just do the best that I can with what I've learned, and that's
let them speak for themselves.
Yeah, just talk to musicians like, I'm not trying to sell hype. I'm trying to sell a tool that will keep them inspired. And so like kind of keeping that as my grounding as I work through designing products, that's been a big thing for us.
Man, very cool. So I know you also just have this new launch on the horizon, and we just connected and partnered because hopefully by the time we get this out, I'll have everything totally finished and we'll have some sound clips. So my guitar that I'm building is going to be featuring two of your pickups. So it's a Tele style guitar with a P90, your smooth P90 in the neck, and the Tele Hybrid Plus in the bridge, and everything is drilled well and looks great, and it's almost ready for painting and then putting in. So I'll put some clips, if not in this episode, as soon as it's ready.
Nice.
But you have this new launch, the Gatekeeper line, that's kind of even more approachable for maybe that person who's never done this before. I remember when I was 16, I loved Zakk Wylde, and I was like, I got to put EMGs in my guitar. So I got EMGs, and I remember, not knowing what I was doing and I soldered them in the wrong spots or something. I can't remember. I had to tuck my tail between my legs and go to Guitar Center and have them fix it. But, for the 16-year-olds or the musicians just getting into electric guitar, realizing that they can change the sound of their guitar. Tell me a little bit about your Gatekeeper pickups.
Yeah, so Gatekeepers are kind of new venture in 2020. It's it has existed. It's an interesting line because it has existed for at least 5 or 6 years, and it was a line that I designed for Sublime Guitars, line of pickups, and they're made in Korea for the Sublime guitars, and just that they wanted to kind of have a little bit. They wanted to attach our name to their instruments, but they didn't want to put the USA ones in there. And it was an opportunity that I could actually work with a small shop of winders. So I was in because of that fact, where I could for me, like working directly with the people and knowing the situation and knowing it's not like a sweatshop. And that was important to me, obviously, because I don't want to I could go and get stuff made anywhere if I want to, but that wasn't really part of it for me. I wanted it to be
be more ethical about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really authentic process, and that was the only reason I even considered it. And it was weird for me to send designs to people and have them make something, because I've always been I gotta make it myself kind of guy.
In-house, your thing.
Exactly. And so this was different, which plenty of companies do it that way. It wasn't really in my thought process for what I wanted to do with Porter. But this was a kind of a royalty system where I would design it, they would put it in the guitars, and we would get a little bit of residual for the sales. And it was kind of cool. It was different. So as things progressed over the last few years, we always had rights to the line, to the brand, basically. And Gatekeeper is another word for Porter, so that's kind of why we called it that, as opposed to like Porter Design or Designed by Porter. I think it sounds cheesy to say that.
Just let it be its own thing. Yeah.
Definitely. So this year we're like, you know what? When all this stuff hit with the virus right at the beginning of April, March, in there, it was like, man, we got to do some stuff that is achievable, because we knew we didn't know how long that it was going to impact everything, but we knew it was going to kind of kill the industry for a bit, or at least wound it. And so we were like, well, if we own this line and we have the rights to this line, and maybe what we can do is try to redevelop it and sell it on our own and provide musicians with really great sounding but really affordable pickups. And we're like, we gotta explore this. And so through the summer, we kind of reconnected with the Winders, and one of the main guys is in Indonesia now, so that's where they're made. And so we worked with them, and we got a round of prototypes done and loaded them up, and like, man, these sound really, really good. And we had already prototyped them 4 or 5 years ago, but we decided to re-prototype them just to make sure that that they were where we wanted to. Like, we didn't have to take that step, but it felt good to like
just freshen them up.
retry. And we changed a couple things, and these are all like basically recipes from the USA line that I've sent over. So I want this many turns, I want these magnets, I want this kind of wire. So basically taking my, some of my recipes and having someone else make them. And so we've got 5 different pickup sets, and they're all $99 each retail price, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
They sound really, really good. And that's the thing that I think we're most proud of this product line is, and they just sound so good. Even, studio guys that have come over and done some recording, they're like, man, these are phenomenal and they're how much? So that was the goal, is because I didn't want to just release something again. It's like, I've got to do something that, our goal is inspiring guitar players. And so if I don't do something that inspires them, like, what's the point? So that became sort of the heart for this line. And it actually, I don't know, as we got reconfirmed that this is really worth doing, we kind of ramped everything up and launched the line, and we're super excited about having that for guitar players. And as we expand, we're going to be offering more things like cheaper loaded pick guards for Strats and other things in the future, just to again help those players. And we get a lot of emails from people who have, maybe they have a $200 Squire, and so they don't want to spend $240 on a set of Strat pickups, but they might be able to scratch $100 out for a set of the Gatekeepers. And so that's been,
for sure,
that's been good. We're really, really excited about that. And we just wanted to, 2020 has been all about like, okay, let's make sure that we're sticking true to what we're about, but also kind of building our foundation a little bit broader to move forward as a company.
Yeah. And I think also, just for one, I'm going to link your podcast episode. So if anybody is interested, they just did an episode recently that kind of demoed all the different pickups in every pickup position. And it was awesome. It was fascinating to listen to. And I was like, man, I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But I think also, what a good year to have this come out this way, because, there's so many people, like you said, who are picking up the guitar again or brand new to guitar. And I think, this and the JHS just put out their $99 pedals. And it's like, man, these things to me seem like no brainer in a time when the information of why you would want to change your pickups is more available than ever. And this, an option like this is available. So I love your all's mission in inspiring people to play, more guitar. So that's kind of my whole mission of the podcast here. So to kind of round out the whole chat, I would love if you talk about that idea of like, why is it important that people make more music, and why do you inspire people to pick up the guitar more, like you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a why, why you do what you do. That's not money related. So it's money's a necessary evil to keep food on the table and pay employees and all that stuff. But I think that the people who really have those whys are the ones that are successful and that can navigate tricky times or trends or anything like that. It's like, no, this is why we do what we do. We're not going to go this direction, or we're not going to compromise this area, because this is why we do what we do. And I always remember those feelings we all do of hearing different songs, hearing different guitar riffs, and be like, man, that is so cool. This is awesome. I love music. I love guitar. And I'd love to see more guitar come back into mainstream music again. And I think that's going to happen, to be honest. I mean, I was reading that Fender has sold more guitars than ever this year. Any other year, they outsold it. So I look at that and
which
I
is
say,
nuts to
yeah,
think about.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. I mean, August was a record month for Porter ever, which is amazing because August is usually one of our slowest months traditionally.
That's
Um,
wild.
so it's like, as we look at that, we're like, people are really wanting to do that, and I love seeing people take that time to learn guitar, and I love that, like, the light bulb goes on, and we all love being, like, addicted to guitar gear and talking about it, and the world is such a better place when there's more music being created and
Yeah.
music being made, and honestly, like, music is right now, it's like we're in such a divided society on every issue,
Mm.
and music is the thing that people seem to be okay to, like, agree on. Yeah, and there's people that are like, oh, we don't like this style, but it's like music is just kind of universal in terms of just
Mm.
a language, in that people from all walks of life can enjoy a concert and just jam out, and it's one of the few things left, I feel like, that won't divide our society up anymore, and that's been kind of our driving force, is like, well, if people are inspired to play more guitar, then they're going to be using their time for that, and they're not going to be using their time for other things. And that's what we want. We want people
Yeah.
to keep making that music and to keep exploring new sounds, and I mean, obviously, those kind of things keep us in business, but at the same time, like, it's investing in, like, who knows, the next John Mayer, the next Steve Ray Vaughan, or the next whoever,
Yeah.
may just be picking up guitar this year, and
Yeah.
that's
And
so
even Fender
exciting.
making moves like, I think it's super cool that they've done things like, Billie Eilish ukulele and Shawn Mendes electric guitar. And I can't wait to see when somebody finally gets Post Malone to do a guitar. That's what
Yeah,
that's what I want to see. Yeah.
yeah,
Always tired guitar. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, awesome, man. I think it's been a great chat. There's going to be lots of links in the show notes to everything, but where do you want people to find everything you all are doing with Porter Pickups and the Gatekeeper and everything else like that?
yeah. So porterpickups.com is the best way to find out that. We have a separate area for Gatekeeper. If you click on the Shop Pickups tab, you can see the Gatekeeper link if you want to learn more about those or look at our whole lineup. We have a ton of stuff on there, a lot of different pickups within each category. So if you're not sure, if you see our big lineup of stuff and you're not sure what you want, we have a form called the Pickup Chooser, which you can go fill out. You'll see a lot of information on the homepage on that one, but you can fill out the Pickup Chooser and we'll actually send you a recommendation based on your answer. So we ask you a few questions about your gear, kind of the sound you're going for. You can attach a picture of your guitar, and then we can make recommendations on not only, like, the cover styles, but also the specific models. And this is like a
Mm.
free a
Again,
free
so awesome.
service.
Yeah. And that's somebody working for you that is responding to them and coming up with that. That's somebody taking their time, looking at your stuff and going, here's what I think you might try.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we tried not to
Man.
call it like the tone doctor or anything like that, but it's basically like we write you a prescription for what you tell us, and the form has the questions worded in a way that we're going to get the clues based on your answers. So it's really helpful for the customer, but it's also helpful for us because we can kind of streamline that decision process, and we'll get you
Yeah.
down to, like, literally one or two sets every single time. This is what you
Yeah. It's
want.
like a dating website for
It
guitar
is,
pickups.
yeah.
I love it.
Find
I love
the
it.
perfect match for your tone, basically, right?
There you go. The next eHarmony. Well, awesome, man. I'm excited to get to show off these pickups and hopefully send a lot of fun people your way. So, any of you music makers listening here, definitely go check out Brian's stuff. Brian, I appreciate you and the Porter line. And if we don't have anything else, I think that's it. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show. It was a good chat, and always love sharing about what we're doing. I think what you're doing there at the podcast is really cool too. I think there's so many people right now that are just trying to keep music alive, and we're all feeling the hurt of the live music industry being shut down and missing concerts, and people in bands trying to figure out how to make ends meet. So I hope that all of this, we can all come together and support each other in this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, until next time, everybody remember, for Brian and Chris, give more grace, share more love, and make more music. Boom.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, if you enjoyed and want to learn more about the guests, their info is in the show notes, as well as how you can support the show. And the best way is to leave a rating and review and tell a friend. Anything else, if you want to make a donation, buy some merch, follow us on Instagram, get in touch with me. You can all do that through the links in the show notes. But until next time, give more grace, share more love, and make more music.